Okay, so today we're going to do Parent as Advocate, and we have the pleasure of having Jules Johnson present for us today. And Jules is our social media community leader at Learning Ally, and she has done so many wonderful things, and I'm sure many of you are in the parent chat that we have, and that's one of the things that she works on. And that's just one of the very many things that Jules works on. But she also is one of the co-founders of Decoding Dyslexia. She lives in Tennessee. She's involved with her local international dyslexia association, and also private and public schools in the area. Excuse me. And Jules, I'd just like to go ahead and welcome you today. She has two children, a boy and a girl, that are both dyslexic, so that's always fun. And her husband's a teacher, so she's kind of got a well-rounded platform there. Jules, welcome today, and let's go ahead and jump right in and get started.
Well, hey, thank you. Thank you, Jennifer, and hello, everyone, and welcome. So glad that you guys are all here. And yes, I am the parent to two children who have dyslexia. Both are in public schools. My son he's in 4th grade, and he actually has an IEP. He has severe dyslexia. My daughter is in 2nd grade, and she has mild dyslexia. So I do have experience with both of those, and definitely with the public schools as well. And of course, all that kind of launched this career to eventually end up at Learning Ally, which I'm so happy about, and to found Decoding Dyslexia. But it has been definitely a whirlwind, and we're feeling like we're in a really good place now. So we're just going to kind of share with you some different things that you can do to get started as well as you're going through this journey as a parent advocate. First of all, just know that nothing that you do for children is ever wasted. We love this graphic. Jennifer and Mariah had already added this in here into the PowerPoint before I got it and edited it for my presentation, and I just thought it was so true, because sometimes it is very tiring advocating, and you get tired of always having to say the same things, over and over to people that are supposed to know more than you about dyslexia, since a lot of educators. So it can be very tiring and very exhausting, and running to tutoring and all of that, but nothing you ever do for a child is ever wasted, and that's just something we always have to remember. So here's how the discussion is going to go a little bit today. We're going to have our conversation and talk about ways that you can be a parent advocate for your child, and then we're going to end it with a Q&A session where myself, Jennifer, and Mariah, all three, can help you. Mariah and Jennifer are both parent support specialists here at Learning Ally. They're experts who can actually take phone calls from you and help you personally. And as I'm talking today, Mariah is also in the chat box, and she can be answering some of your questions as well. So what does it mean to be a parent to a child with dyslexia? Well, we are all the wearer of many hats, aren't we? We definitely are. We are the secretary and record keeper. I have got a gigantic IEP folder. It is so thick. My friends who don't have children who have these struggles always get tickled when I pull it out because it's so thick and their eyes get so big. But we'll talk about ways you can organize yours as we go through the meeting too. But we are definitely a secretary and a record keeper. Got a question that says, what is an IEP? That is an individual education plan, and we'll be going over that a little bit too. An individual education plan, it's made in public schools mostly, so if you have a child in a private school, usually they call it something else. I believe it's SLP. If Jennifer and Mariah are on, I think that's what they call it in the private schools. But basically it's a plan for an individualized education when your child is not showing the growth in general education that they should be. So we'll talk about how you can get one of those and what those mean in a little bit too. You're also a cheerleader for your child. Obviously, you're a confidence builder. You're their coach, chauffeur for everything from extracurricular activities to tutoring. Yes, check writers. We all know about that as we're starting this journey. A designated reader for sure, especially of some of those school assignments. Sometimes parenting more than one child, like I am. I actually have two children, and sometimes you can run into troubles if one child maybe does not have the struggle with reading and is an advanced reader. You are a participant in IEP meetings. You're also a homework helper, taskmaster, research specialist, and of course a counsel for the defense of your child, which is what we get to today, an advocate. That is really what we are at the heart of it. So what is an advocate? What does that mean to be a parent advocate? Well, you can actually pay professionals. There are professional advocates who have had professional training, and you can pay them and they can come to your meeting. There are some that do it for free as well. But as parents, we are also all advocates for our children. And what that means at its root, advocate, is one that pleads the cause of another. So we are there to plead the cause for our children and to make sure that they get the best education that they can. Advocacy is the act or process of advocating or supporting a cause or proposal. We are all the best advocates for our children. Sometimes we do need extra help. Sometimes we need someone that is more versed in the lingo of the schools. And you know, definitely seek that out if you feel like you're in over your head. But we're going to kind of go into some ways that you can help your children today. So you were given this child for this reason. You are this child's best advocate, and you always, always need to remember that as you're going through. This is one of my very favorite quotes. First thing you need to do if you're going to be an advocate for your child is you need to understand that you do have rights. You have rights. Yes, your child goes to school, could be homeschool, could be public school, could be private school, but in all of those situations, you have rights. So let's go over some of the rights that you have. U.S. school systems, both private and public, vary widely in their support of students with LD. And when we say LD, that stands for a learning disability. The reason we say LD and learning disability for dyslexia is because dyslexia actually falls under the category of learning disability in federal law. Can everyone still hear me? I just got a note saying the sound went out, so hopefully everyone can still hear me. Jennifer, Mariah, can you still hear me?
Yep.
Okay, good. I got it. I can. Awesome. Okay,
Yep.
great. It must have just been the one person. Okay, great. Okay, so when we say LD, keep in mind that we are using that for dyslexia as well, and a lot of times your schools will use the term LD or learning disabled to you. I will tell you, when my school first told me that term, it upset me. I was upset by it. I didn't fully understand at that time that that was in federal law, that is what they actually use in federal law, is the term learning disability, and that dyslexia is a category under it. When I heard disabled, I thought they were telling me that my child was not able to learn. So don't be upset by that term. It's just something that they use. And Mariah's typing some extra info into the chat box as well. So some districts and many individual educators are progressive. Some are progressive, informed, up to speed on assistive technology, and helpful for parents. There are some private schools that are specifically for students with learning disabilities. There are some public schools, very few, but there are some that are specifically for students with learning disabilities. There's one in Florida right now that I know really well called the GRASP Academy that's there. There are some districts and educators that are not as informed, but they will remain receptive to you. In other words, they're going to try to help you help your child, even though maybe they haven't learned as much about dyslexia as others. And then there are others that are very much behind the curve of understanding, and unfortunately there are some that will not be receptive to parental input. So let's know what our rights are. First of all, you need to familiarize yourself with special education laws. There are laws that govern special education, and they are in federal law, and there are some at the state level as well. There are several states now that do have dyslexia laws. So if you look up your specific state and dyslexia law, you will find that several states do have them. I know New Jersey does, Tennessee does. I know California is working on one. I'm not sure if that passed yet or not, but I know they've been working on one. But there are federal laws as well, and state laws cannot, someone asked Colorado, I'm not sure. I believe they do, but I'm not sure. But know that your federal law, it is always there. It's always there, and your states cannot say we're not going to recognize that, because your state can't override federal law. So know that, familiarize yourself with special education laws. One thing that you need to know, you see this term FAPE, F-A-P-E, that is a free and appropriate public education. Every student is entitled by federal law to a free and appropriate public education. Keep that word in mind when you have your meetings with your school professionals. You always want to say you're trying to get them an appropriate education, because that is the language that's used in the law. So you might want to write that down, to always use that language. Unfortunately, they don't have to give your child the best, and some districts will remind you of that. But if you use the word appropriate, then that tends to get some attention, because that's what's actually in the law. So students are entitled to that. Dyslexia is listed under the category of specific learning disability in federal IDEA law. One thing that we often hear from parents, and we hear this a lot, and I just heard it from my child's teacher yesterday, actually, that she ran into this when she first started. that schools sometimes tell them, we don't recognize dyslexia. You can't get any help for dyslexia because we don't recognize it. Well, actually, dyslexia is listed under specific learning disability in federal IDEA law, which is the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. You can find that law online, and you can actually highlight it if you want, but it is listed under that law, so that's just some good information for you to have going in. You also have rights to discuss your concerns with the school. You do have that right. Never be afraid, to bring up your concerns. You have the right to request that the school evaluate your child for services or accommodations, and we'll talk more about what those mean a little bit later on, but you have the right to request that your child be evaluated. We recommend that you always do this in writing. If you do it in writing, it starts a paper trail, and then you know the date that you started, that you requested it, and you can always go back and verify that, yes, I asked for it on this date. You are also part of the decision-making team. So don't let anyone let you feel like your opinion does not matter, because it does matter and it is important, and you do have the right to be part of the decision-making team for your child. So let's talk a little bit about some of these terms that we have been talking about just a little bit. I mentioned IEP earlier, and some folks were asking what that is. Let's talk about some things. My state, Tennessee, has something called RTI, and a lot of states have adopted this. It's not just Tennessee, but it stands for Response to Intervention. Now, it's going to be different state by state, so keep that in mind. However, what it stands for at the root is to see if a child responds to a specific intervention program or strategy. So a lot of times if you hear that your child is placed in RTI, then that's what it means. They have placed your child in a different intervention. It's still general education usually, to see if your child is going to respond to that program, if their reading is going to improve, if their spelling is going to improve. So they've put them in a program called Response to Intervention. You're going to hear a lot of letters as you jump into this world. So just kind of be aware that you might want to even have a little cheat sheet of letters. We have one of those on Learning Ally, actually. The next thing I want to talk to you about is a 504 plan. Have you guys heard of this before, 504? Well, here's the definition of a 504 plan. This is, you have RTI. A child can have a 504 and still be in RTI. But a 504 plan is a plan developed to ensure that a child who has a disability, which dyslexia is, identified under the law, which dyslexia is, and is attending an elementary or secondary educational institute, receives accommodations that will ensure their academic success and access to the learning environment. So let's talk about what those accommodations could be. And there's quite a few. We've got some handouts on those, but there's a few. But some of them that you might see is maybe the child gets extra time on tests, because it might take the child a little bit longer to do the same type of work. Maybe the child gets audiobooks, because they can still do the work in the class, but the reading is too hard. So those are just a couple of examples of some different accommodations that you may get with a 504, but that is one thing that you can definitely ask your school about. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is an IEP. An IEP is the Individualized Educational Plan for a child. It is a plan or a program developed to ensure that a child who has a disability, and again, dyslexia is a disability identified under the law, and is attending an elementary or secondary school, receives specialized instruction and related services. So there is your difference. Your IEP, a lot of times, is a very specialized plan. It does not have to be a place by federal law, but a lot of times it does mean that they're going to pull your child out and maybe give them a very intensive type program. My son has an IEP. He gets pulled out, and it's going to vary because it's individualized, but he gets pulled out 5 days a week actually for a program called Wilson Reading, which is an Orton-Gillingham-based program, and it's specifically made for kids and even adults who have dyslexia to help them with their reading. So he gets that, and then he also is protected with his accommodations of his audiobooks, his extra time, all of that different kind of stuff that you need. So an IEP is one of your stronger things that you can get, but keep in mind, even if you don't qualify for an IEP, you may still be able to get a 504, which is still pretty good. It's still pretty good stuff to help your child in class with extra time and audiobooks and all of that. Now that we know your rights, let's talk about, oh, I guess, Scott, you're so lucky your Tennessee school offers Wilson reading. Yes, I actually am, and I'll tell you I had to advocate for that quite a bit, and I'll tell you how I did it. Um, how can I get to your school? Our school is pretty good. Um, I did have to advocate for Wilson, though, and I'll tell you what I did, and it's some of these responsibilities. Document everything. That's what I did to get Wilson for my child. At first, they were going to put him in a program called My Sidewalks, and I did a lot of research, and I found out that My Sidewalks was not developed for children who have learning disabilities. I found out Wilson was, and I found out it was in the district elsewhere. So I documented everything. I documented everything the school gave me, all of their testing. I kept it organized. I kept all of my children's work, and I put all of that in that big 3-ring binder that I had. So I put all of that in the 3-ring binder. How did you find information about Wilson reading? I actually found it online through Decoding Dyslexia. There were some parents talking about it, and I asked about it. And I asked my district if we had it, and they said we did have it elsewhere in the school, but here's what they told me. Oh, that's not for your child. They said, that's not for your child. That's for other children. So, and there's the website, wilsonlanguage.com. So what I actually did is I started to research the program they had my child in, and then I went online to Wilson Reading, and I started to research it. And you can find a lot of stuff online, but I researched directly from Wilson Reading. I researched why they developed the program. And I couldn't go to my district and say dyslexia because they're one of those districts that doesn't use the word, even though it is in federal law. So what I did is I documented everything, and then I lined it up with how my child's weaknesses matched Wilson and how they did not match the other program that they had him in. And then I took all of that and I gave it to the principal. Didn't really go very far, so then I actually had to go to the district. And I went to the district and I lined all of that up, and the district wrote me back and said, your child will be in Wilson. So that's how I got my son in Wilson, and it's a tough road, I'll tell you, but it starts with documentation. So document everything. Keep it all. If your teacher writes something on your child's paper, such as, couldn't copy this from the board, he should be able to copy this from the board, or struggling to hear the sounds in words, or didn't get this finished. You know, whatever notes are written on your child's paper, always keep those. Keep email communications with your teacher. If your teacher has written you something that tells you that your child's struggling, keep it, because that's going to back up your concerns. It's going to back up that, yes, my child is having struggles, and I am not the only person that's seeing this. The teacher is seeing this too. So document all of that. Keep your child's papers. Communicate well with your teachers. When I talked about the emails, find out how your teacher likes to communicate. Most of mine to this point have liked email, but my son's teacher this year likes to text. So find out, you know, I always start, what I do every year is I start with a parent-teacher meeting, the very beginning of the year, and I request it first thing. And I say, you know, I really need to have a parent-teacher conference as soon as possible. And when I do, I go over all of this. I bring the Learning Ally handouts. I go over their, you know, diagnoses, and then I talk to them about how is the best way to communicate with the teacher. So it's always good just to have that open line of communication. If you can get the teacher on your side, it really helps a lot if it comes to an IEP or 504. It's just nice to have the teacher, you know, on your side. It's not always possible. Not all are as open as others, but if you can do that, it's nice. If requests are denied, and sometimes they are, always have a game plan for follow-up. Now, if you struggle with this game plan, I'm going to tell you, our parent support specialists are amazing. We're going to give you their phone number at the end, and you can always call them with any questions. So always keep in mind, yes, I'm requesting this. It might be denied, but I'm going to have a backup plan for just in case it's denied. I'm not going to panic. I'm going to have a backup plan. Ask questions of anything that you don't understand. You definitely have the right to ask questions. Clarify. One thing that you can say, if your school says we don't recognize dyslexia, say, can you show me where it says that you don't? Or we don't offer this program. Can you show me where it says that? Or your child has to go through RTI before we'll do any testing. Okay, can you show me where that's written down? Always ask questions, and always asking show me where that's written is very helpful. And they may say we have to get back to you in a day, you know, and that's okay, but continue to follow up. Also, remember to include your child's strengths. I will tell you this, when I started this journey, I didn't realize how important that was. And I will tell you that when I first started, my son's IEP has an area that lists his strengths, but what the school had listed was David, that's my son, they put David is a nice boy who tries his best. That is not his strengths. I mean, he is a nice boy who tries his best, but he's also fabulous at math. He's great at science. He's a wonderful artist. He's got great social skills. So, I mean, those kind of things need to be written down as well. And there is an area where you can list their strengths. If it comes to an IEP, remember to include that in your communication with your child's teacher. My child maybe is great at, kinesthetic learning. My child is really good at science, but he needs it, verbally taught to him. Just remember to list those as well. It's not always all about the weaknesses. Now let's talk a little bit more about how to get organized, because we've just given you a lot of information. First things first, I keep several 3-ring binders, but I do keep one that's strictly my students' work, my students' evaluations, and notes from the teachers. And we do have a handout that you can download in this webinar. It will be emailed to you, and it has it's from Wright's Law. It has a great deal of information on how to organize this binder. That's actually what I use to organize mine. And I do have it separated into several sections of evaluations, notes, and teachers. I have that one, but then I also have one that's just strictly research and one that's strictly law-based stuff. So it's really great to have. I like 3-ring binders. You might like to do this on a computer instead, but it's just great to be organized and to take that to your meetings with you, because then when someone says, well, why are you concerned about that? You can pull out the paper that's gotten, where the teacher wrote on it and said, this child is struggling in this, and you could say because of this, so it's just great to have that. Keep another binder with research on the law, dyslexia, interventions, and accommodations. This is something that I'm learning all the time, the different types of accommodations that a child can have. For instance, last year, I'm always learning. Last year, my son, we're coming up on our state test, which is the TCAP here in Tennessee. He really struggles to fill in the bubbles on the bubble form. So I was telling the teachers, I was like, I'm not going to let him take this test if he has to fill out the bubbles, because it's not going to show his true ability. Well, the teachers didn't really know what to do. They said, we're going to check into it. I ended up asking one of my coworkers at Learning Ally about it. I was just kind of talking about it, and she said there's an accommodation where they can write the answers in the booklet. They don't have to do the bubble form. So I actually went back to the school and said, hey, do we have this accommodation, and how can we get it? Immediately, we held an IEP meeting. It got put in the accommodation. So sometimes you do have to do a little research. Sometimes the school may not necessarily know all the accommodations, and that's a total conversation for another day. I know a lot of us feel that they should, but it's a lot of information. So sometimes they honestly don't. So do some research, ask the PSSs, call them here, and explain your child's problem and see if there's any accommodation that you can talk to the school about. Some parents find it helpful to record IEP meetings. That's definitely helpful. They'll actually bring just a little tape player and listen to it. It helps you later to re-listen to it, make sure that you understood everything correctly, make sure that it all made sense. Tell the school up front. I'm always big at being upfront and honest with the school, so tell the school ahead of time, because some schools, some districts also require them to record as well. If you're recording, our district is that way. So it's just always nice just to have it up front and honest and say, hey, I'm going to record this, and it's so that I can actually go back and listen to it later. It's always a good idea. Now, next you want to identify resources and supports, because I'll tell you, I know all of this information is very overwhelming at first. So let's talk about things that you can do. First of all, you are not alone, ever. You are not alone. It may feel that way at first, and for quite a while it may feel that way. When my son was first struggling with reading, I felt very alone. I didn't know anything about dyslexia. I just knew he was struggling, and I knew that my other friends' kids were not. And I beat myself up. I thought that I was, just a terrible teacher, and I just didn't know how to teach him to read, and I must just not be doing what other parents are doing. So I really had a hard time with that for a while. The process can be very isolating. Dealing with teachers, administrators, school personnel, it plays out on a one-to-one basis oftentimes. I will tell you, every meeting, every parent-teacher meeting I had with my child from pre-kindergarten until he was diagnosed in 2nd grade, I cried in every meeting. And I don't recommend that. Don't do that. But I couldn't help it, because I didn't know anything. I didn't know what was going on with him. I knew he was smart. I knew that he could understand things, but I knew that for some reason he just was not grasping reading, and I didn't know why. And when I would ask the teachers for help, they also didn't have answers. So, just know that you're not alone, and it can be very isolating. Long waiting periods can compound the isolation, and boy, that is true. When you're waiting for those results, I went in day one of second grade and requested an evaluation for my son. In our IEP meeting, our S-team meeting is what they call it, where they end up telling you you got an IEP or a 504 or didn't or why. It wasn't until October. So the long waiting periods really can compound that isolation for sure. And I'll tell you, it wasn't until January, halfway through that year, that I finally got him in the correct reading program. So the waiting really can be very, very frustrating, and it can make you feel very isolated and alone. But here are some resources that you can have. Decoding Dyslexia is in all 50 states. It's also in some Canadian provinces. So Decoding Dyslexia is in all 50 states. If you want to know where yours is, go to decodingdyslexia.net. It will link you to Decoding Dyslexia. And I will tell you, this group has helped me so much in so many ways, just going on and asking them for local resources. I found beyond the school testing here in Tennessee, I found a university that will test children for $30 to see if they have dyslexia, and I found that through Decoding Dyslexia. So it's just a wealth of localized resources to help you know what's available and what's out there in your local area. It also helps you to not feel alone. Our Decoding Dyslexia in our state has had book signings for children from dyslexic authors. We had an art show last year. We're planning a 5K. So it just makes you not feel so alone. Learning Ally is also here for you. We have parent services like this one today where you have the webinars, and then we also have one-on-one phone calls and webinars as well with our parent support specialist. Now we also have a Facebook parent chat. It's called Learning Ally Parent Chat. It's a group on Facebook. Fabulous group. There's over 2,000 people in there. It's a national group, so it's not as localized, but you can hop in there, ask questions, say, you know, I have this IEP meeting coming up, you know, what's your advice, what should I do? I mean, it's just a great, great resource. Other resources that are wonderful as well, the International Dyslexia Association, Bright Solutions for Dyslexia, that is the Barton reading program. It's a program that you can actually purchase and do at home with your child, but I'll tell you, Susan Barton writes you back and calls you back easily. Wrights Law, this is a great website, and books as well. If you want to learn more about educational law and what your rights are, I definitely recommend that website, Wrights Law. And then the Dyslexia Training Institute is another wonderful, wonderful resource. They offer online trainings, and you know, you can go online and schedule that, and it's for a cost, but you can go online and get a lot of information on that as well. A lot of people are asking about Wilson. I've noticed that. Barbara Wilson, I've actually picked up the phone and called them before, and they'll tell you exactly what schools have Wilson reading. They'll tell you if the teachers are certified in Wilson, and they'll tell you where you can find tutors. So, I mean, just calling the company sometimes, great, great, great resources. All right, so become your child's champion. This is really what we feel like at Learning Ally is the key to helping our children who have dyslexia. They need some form of remediation. Basically, they need the proper reading program, which is multisensory structured language based. There's a lot of different ones out there. Wilson's just one. There's Spire, there's Barton, there's Slingerland. There's a lot of different ones. So they need they need to be taught in the way they learn. They also need some accommodations because reading is slow going, especially if it's not caught until, you know, 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, sometimes even middle school, high school. Accommodations really do help, and that's your audiobooks, extra time on test. It might be some type of software for typing. There's a lot of different accommodations, but the biggest thing they need is a champion. And as parents, we're always their champion, that is for sure. We're going to be with them for their whole lives, and we're the ones there making sure that they succeed. Because we care more about it than anyone, maybe even, you know, sometimes more than anyone out there, and don't let anyone tell you that if they care about it more than you, because you care about your child's success first and foremost. So now that you have all of this advocacy information, for your individual advocacy, for your own child, you want to research and learn what you need to know to advocate well. You want to connect to your local resources. Obviously, communicate often with your teachers. I am constantly in touch with my teachers, and sometimes I'll joke with them a little bit. I'm like, I don't mean to be that mom, but, you know, I'm reaching out again because I have this concern or this is going on, and they always kind of laugh, you know, and say, oh, no, you're no trouble. Like, I'm glad to communicate with you, but sometimes you do feel like you're being a little bit pestering, and I try not to do that, but but it's just good to open that communication and have it out there. Build a network of supportive peers with Learning Ally. We're here for you. Decoding Dyslexia is here for you. And always make sure to support your child's strengths. That is huge for me. Yes, we are working on the weaknesses, but my child loves to run, so we make sure that he has time for cross country. We make sure that he has time for his art club. You want to build those strengths because those strengths are what make them feel good. They don't want to constantly be reminded of what they are not as good at, and they definitely need something to make them feel good. Then you have systematic advocacy as well. Once you start to learn things, branch out and share your knowledge with others, just like we're doing here today. Connect others to these valuable resources. You want to make sure to collaborate and network with your teachers and other professionals, and you want to build a network of like-minded peers. And again, that's where Learning Ally, Decoding Dyslexia, IDA all come in handy. You want to help others to accept and embrace the diversity. Yes, we all want our children to read and read well. It's still going to be difficult for a lot of our children. And so we want people to accept things like sometimes they might need audiobooks, and that's okay. Sometimes they might need extra time, and that's okay. They're still just as smart as everyone else. They just learn differently. So we really want to help people understand that and to understand that spelling isn't everything. You know, spelling isn't the whole world. So Learning Ally, this is some of the stuff that we offer. This webinar like we have today, our parent support specialist consultations, these are actually one-on-one, and I know Mariah posted the phone number there for you. I'll show it to you again at the end. But if you are in this journey, maybe this information I gave you today, maybe it's a little bit overwhelming for you, or maybe you just needed more clarity on something, or maybe you needed a one-on-one advice on something that's very specific to your child that you don't necessarily want posted all over the internet or said out loud in a webinar. In that case, you can call us, our parent support specialist, and you can get a one-on-one 30-minute phone consultation where our parent support experts will actually help you one-on-one to guide you to resources and help guide you in what you can do and what you can say on your advocacy journey. We have other webinars and events. We have Ask a Parent, which is a forum on Learning Ally's website, learningally.org. You just click on Parents, and then there's a section there that's called Ask a Parent. And if you actually type in a question there, one of our parent support specialists will answer it. It's public, but they'll answer it. We have parent chat forums, which is the Learning Ally parent chat on Facebook. We also have a specialist directory. Maybe you're in this webinar today and you're like, gosh, I don't even know where to start. My child's not been evaluated. The school has not evaluated them, but I want to know how to get my child tested. Well, if you go to our specialist directory, we have it broken down by state. And you can actually go to your state and try to find a specialist there as well. And we also have a tutor network which does the exact same thing. All of our tutors have to be certified in some form of multisensory language-based instruction. So if you're looking for a one-on-one tutor, go to our website. We've got the tutor network, and you break it down by state. And then once you go by state, it actually has it listed by city. We do have a community e-newsletter you can sign up for. We have a program, a National Achievement Award program. At the end of the year, every year, we actually honor 6 students, three are blind, 3 are dyslexic, and they get scholarships for college. So it's a really, really cool program. And of course, we have over 80,000 audiobooks. They're all human voiced. Some of them are even voiced by professional actors. So it's a pretty cool thing to have. This is something awesome. I really like this one too. You will look back on all the therapies one day, appointments, sleepless nights, tears, triumphs, milestones, equipment, ignorance, struggle, strength, and you will say with certainty it was absolutely worth it. That is true. It can be a tiring journey. It's a lot, but you know, our kids will get there. And I always say to people that ask, my son and I are climbing this mountain together. He has severe dyslexia. My daughter's mild, and so for him, you know, my daughter, she's holding on. She's pretty much at average reading level now. We caught her early. But for my son, he's still pretty far behind. He's about 2 years behind, and we're struggling, and we're working on it. I became an OG tutor to help him and my daughter, and, you know, I say we are climbing this mountain together. We are climbing it together, and we are going to dance at graduation together. We certainly are. We have a great conference coming up. I don't know if you've heard of this, Spotlight on Dyslexia. This is a parent conference. It's just for parents, and it's completely online, just like this webinar. You'll be able to talk and chat with other parents. We have some top experts. That takes place December 4th of this year. It's actually like a 9 to 5 conference, big conference, 21 different speakers, top experts in the world. So if you would like more information on that, log on to learningally.org/dyslexia conference, and you'll see all the information there. So we're actually going to take some questions here. We're not wrapping up just yet, but I'm going to leave this up so that you guys, where do you find information on the S Kids? They are on our website as well. Before I get to that, though, I want to tell you that here's the phone number. I'm going to leave this up for you as we're taking questions. And it's also got our parent chat and our Twitter on here as well. But that phone number that you see, you can call that and schedule one of those one-on-one consultations we've been talking about the whole time today. So, so do call that if you would like. But yes, we got a question that I did see about the YES program. YES program is an awesome program. It is a student-to-student self-advocacy program. It stands for Youth Examples of Self-Advocacy. And if you go to explore1in5.org, and I'll say that again, explore1in5.org, all of that is really dedicated to our student services at Learning Ally. You can get to it from the learningally.org page as well, but explore1in5.org is the direct address. The YES program is there, and it is right now only in 2 states, Colorado and New Jersey, but we are expanding it. But if you would like information on that, you can go to that website. And there's also a ton of videos there for your kids that you might want to share with them. We actually went and interviewed students who have dyslexia, middle school and high school students, and they all talk about when they first found out and, you know, things that help them, like technology. They do their own reviews of technology that helps, and it's just a really, really cool website. So I'm going to open it up for questions. I think we got a couple of more. Mariah, are you on there?
Hello, Jules.
Hey, I think someone said, how do you sign up for the newsletter too?
Yeah, I'm putting it in, I put the link right now into the chat box for all the youth stuff. So if anybody wants to click on that, and we'll send that out too with the material follow-up, okay?
Yes, yes. And there is actually a youth newsletter as well if you want that for your children. We call it the Dyslexian. And the reason we call it that is because our kids that were in the YES program started calling themselves dyslexians. They thought it was really funny because they felt like they were very unique, and often they felt like they were misunderstood except in their own special little group. So that kind of became their pet name for their group, the Dyslexians. And we held a contest and let them name the newsletter, and that's what they ended up naming it. So that's our newsletter for our kids. You can sign up for that as well.
Jules?
Yes.
One of the questions coming from Carla, it says, my district is denying an assistive technology evaluation for my child who's in 6th grade. I've asked them to reconsider and they now want to have a call. I have to build my arsenal now. Any recommendations on how best to advocate for this? So I would say I'm curious if they have put it in writing that they are denying it, and any requests that I make in IEP meetings, I also ask if I could have it in a prior written notice that has them put it in writing what the request was from the parent and what their reasoning is why they're denying it. I also would go a step further with it. When asking for an assistive technology evaluation, you want to see the write-up on what the recommendation is, and also that they talk with the teacher about the recommendations and the parents, because what I find a lot of times is we get that evaluation and then there's lack of follow-through and implementation because not all parties have been trained. So I think for everyone to be able to, you know, have the write-up, be able to talk about it, and make sure that there's going to be proper training in place for whatever the recommendations have been.
I noticed she said she requested it in writing, but they still said they wanted the call. I would still, I mean, even if you call them, follow up in writing, right, Jennifer?
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of a thing that's you have to be very careful of, and that's used quite frequently, is that the school will say, well, let's just go ahead and talk about this, come on in, or do a phone call or whatever, and they really don't want to put anything in writing. But you need to request that it be put in writing, and you can even say, I need to share this with his dad. Can you make sure you write this all down? And and then also too, if you do a phone call, as soon as you hang up, send them a thank you note, by email or in writing, just saying, hey, thanks for talking today. I want to just go to reiterate what we talked about and then lay it all out so that you'll have a good record of what you guys discussed. Because
Mhm.
it's very common that you discuss a bunch of stuff and then none of it happens. And then later on, 6 months down the road, you're going, wait a minute, didn't I deal with this already? But you can't even really remember yourself because 20 more things have happened since then. So it's really important to document. And you had brought that up earlier, Jules, and that is one of the most important things that you can do is make sure that you have really good documentation. Another thing that you mentioned earlier that I just want to go into real quick before we get to some more questions is you talked about how with your child you didn't get hung up on what they wanted to call the problem or when they were saying, well, this isn't for your kid and all that. You specifically went into why it was for him. So you addressed the needs, and that's really important. Again, is to make sure that you're not getting hung up on using the word specific learning disability or dyslexia. Pull out those individual needs of that child and then figure out what is going to actually address the need. And that's the
Yep.
way you're going to kind of, work around a lot of this. Okay, Mariah, go ahead and jump into some more questions. There's a ton in here. This is awesome.
I just wanted to
Awesome.
say one of my favorite from the Dyslexia Training Institute. She always says needs drive the services and services drive the goals. So just keeping that in your head of what your starting place, and not getting hung up on that word. If they're not going to say dyslexia, you could say it a lot at the table.
Yes.
Just keep on saying it over and over and over again. Because I think it's important that everyone is using the same language, but if they're not aware that it is okay to say the word, to speak to the specific needs. So if your child, whatever the weaknesses are, and talk about that, and always determining, so my child has a learning disability, and if it's adversely affecting their ability to access their education. I think using that like higher level those technical words versus, well, they wouldn't say dyslexia and they wiped it under the tape under the rug and then I just went on, keep on going, kind of talking around it and how that's going to enact what they need to do in order to service your child. I don't know. Let's see. We have so many questions. It seems like a lot of people are really going back and forth and kind of answering their own questions. One thing that I was thinking that I had brought up, that we are going to be starting a parent live chat. And Jen, do you want to explain a little bit about what we're thinking for
Yeah,
that? And we haven't set a date, but maybe this group might be interested in participating in that with us.
right. And we talked a little bit earlier about the Learning Ally Parent Chat, and that's on Facebook. We do realize that not everybody's on Facebook, but even the people that are on Facebook, sitting there typing out your question and trying to, formulate answers and everything all by typing isn't probably the easiest way to do it. So we want to do Parent Chat Live, and that'll be a session that'll be set up kind of just like our webinars, but you'll be able to come in there and talk to each other. And we're hoping to keep the groups probably around between 10 and 20 people so that everybody can kind of just really either sit there and listen or pitch in on the conversation, and we'll be able to unmute you and you can talk and ask questions live. And we are definitely getting that rolling pretty quick. We're working on getting some new webinar platforms in place at Learning Ally. So we have a lot of really good ideas up our sleeves. So keep an eye on that. I did notice, I mean, there are so many questions in here. It's so awesome. But one of the questions that I did see just roll by, it was about testing. And one thing I want to talk about as far as testing goes, whenever you have outside testing done, and this particular person was talking about going from state to state, um, keep in mind that the school district only has to consider outside testing. So no matter what, when you go from district to district, you're going to have that district evaluate your child, and they're going to be evaluating to see if they're qualified for special education services. They are not going to be evaluating your child to see if they have a specific thing. They're not going to diagnose them. They want to find out what the needs are and if they qualify for services, and that's pretty much it. So even if you do have a diagnosis from another state, that is absolutely not a problem. You need to bring all your information in to the meeting and present it, but they will still do their own workup with your child.
Jen,
And
one of
yes.
one of the things that I want to bring up to that, because this is something that we get a lot with parents, is they go through the testing and then the school says that there was no discrepancy. And we know that there's other areas that they need to be looking. They could look at other data, outside information, consider the testing that was done on the outside. But that is something that it's kind of an outdated model to be identifying kids with learning disabilities by just looking at a severe discrepancy, because I will tell you what, there's been testing that's been done on my child and he has not scored far, far below. But then when they did a little bit more digging after we asked for their special education criteria, how they're finding these kids, they went back, they looked at the information that the teacher, what he'd been doing in his class, his writing, his spelling, gathering more information, the dibbles, the reading, I just look at it as pieces of evidence, like you're defending your case in court and lining them all up. So just know that they can look at other data. They can see if the kid has been responding to intervention. So if they haven't, those are going to be all other areas that are going to help you make a determination if your child's eligible for special education. So don't let we have to wait for the kid to be 3 to 4 years behind and there needs to be a severe discrepancy. That is not true. And you can look at that information in IDEA and your special education code at your school, but that would be an outdated model. So I just wanted to bring that up.
Yeah, and it's very common, very common. And Jules mentioned Wright's Law earlier, and Wright's Law actually has a lot of really good information that can kind of help you to understand how to apply all that. But I mean, I think one thing I wanted to say too is Jules tapped on something earlier. Jules, you did a really good job. You tapped on so much information. One of the other things is this is hard. This work is not for sissies. This is a lot of work. You have to put a lot of time in and really prepare yourself and keep good records. But it is so worth it. I know both Jules and Mariah have kids that are pretty young right now, and they're kind of right in the middle of all this hard work. But I'll tell you, I did this already. My kids are older, and Violet now is going to be 16 here coming up pretty quick, and she's doing wonderful in school. But when my kids were little, it was hard. Both my kids did not do well in school, and we did homeschool, public school, private school, and it was a nightmare. But it's worth everything you do because it pays off. Hard work does pay off, so don't give up.
Also, I think that we have a tendency as parents, like we drive ourselves crazy with all the research that we're doing, and we're focusing so much on what is the school doing. And sometimes the school is doing a wonderful job and they're doing everything that they can, and some people have an amazing situation going on. I would have to say that I don't think that there's one perfect situation out there. Whether you're in private, public, it's also the home and what you're doing, and if you can provide tutoring, are you letting your child explore their strengths? Are you talking about dyslexia in the home? But that's one piece. With my children, we also have ADHD. They're trying to balance their social, their sports. I mean, there's so many things, and looking at your child as a whole child and not just letting them be an IEP and goals and what is the school doing. Also looking a little self-reflection on what could we be doing differently to support the school, because we know that schools are strapped and we don't want to make this all about a competition. We also want to be the parents that are in school and volunteering and helping out and supporting your kid at home, not putting so much pressure on what is the school doing or not doing.
Right.
We had one question saying, do you find that teachers get offended when you bring them information about dyslexia? And I just wanted to say, from my perspective, I haven't had any get offended. Now, I know some out there might, just like any human being, they're human. But I always just approach it as a parent-teacher conference at the beginning of the year, and just to share with them my child's background in education, and then I listen to their, suggestions, concerns, whatever as well, and usually it ends up being a really good conversation. And both of my kids' teachers this year ended it with saying, I learned a lot, and I wish I was taught this in school, and I wish we had more information on this. So
I think it's all about your approach as well. I can say that I've made some mistakes. I know early on I really didn't know how to approach it, and I remember just walking into my son's 3rd grade class and saying, hi, how are you? I'm Mariah, and my son's dyslexic. Have a good day. And walked out. I would not recommend that to anyone. And, there's information. Have a good day. She probably thought that I was a crazy person. Like, what's dyslexia? So I wouldn't do that approach, but I did this last year. There's, you guys remember that little note? It says, "Dear teacher." It has a picture of an apple on it. We've posted on Decoding
Oh yeah,
Dyslexia.
that's a
I
good
know Utah, I think they created it. But anyway, I sent that, and then I did the What is Dyslexia, Dyslexia Training Institute little 4-minute video. And I had one teacher that was offended. And she told me, over the years, I've taught many kids with dyslexia, and I'm a reading specialist, and basically like, thank you, have a good day. The other teacher was so appreciative and thanked me and told me, I feel so much more prepared to teach your child this year. Thank you for sharing this information with me. So you never really know, but I think if it, in your approach and going not in like, hey, I know everything, we're all learning. I'm learning something new about dyslexia every single day. So to go in and just say, this has been kind of hard on our family, but I've done a lot of research and I would like to share this with you because, it is 1 in 5, so there is a possibility that you may have 5 of their or 4 of their children in your class, and this just might be helpful for you. And then say if you have any other questions, please feel free. I'm always willing to talk about this.
Right. I always kind of look at it like we're a team, and I'll always go with the teacher like, we're a team in this education, and here's, because I'm an OG tutor now, I'm always like, here's what I'm doing with them at home, and then they kind of tell me what they're doing at school, and I can say, okay, if you really see them struggling on one concept that you maybe don't have the time to work with them one-on-one as intense as they need, let me know. And they always just seem very appreciative of that. But again, teachers are human with all different kinds of personalities, just like all of us. So it just kind of depends, and you have to kind of read them a little bit. Like Mariah was saying, 2 different teachers had a completely different reaction to the same thing. So
Hey,
yeah.
there's a good question in here about one of the parents is asking about cursive writing, and she has a teacher that's really really wanting to make sure that everybody learns cursive, and there are definitely a lot of opinions going on about cursive right now, but there's some good research that shows that it's actually very very helpful for kids to learn cursive, and then there's others that just say, well, it's not really that necessary because we're going to be using keyboards, and those are both true valid points. She's worried about her son having to do the work, and I'm wondering if her son doesn't have some dysgraphia, and if he does, then that would be definitely a valid reason for him to have an accommodation that he does not have to learn cursive. But cursive is very effective in helping kids with muscle memory, and it's a multisensory piece to writing. So um, it's kind of one of those things. It's not a yes or no. It depends on that individual kid. But if there's problems with dysgraphia, cursive can be very challenging. So you might want to look a little bit more into whether he's got dysgraphia or not.
And
Anybody
I'll
want
tell
to
you,
add anything on?
my
Yeah.
son is 4th grade, and he was really worried. I was really worried about cursive because they started that last year. I was really concerned, and he came home so excited and said he loved
Yeah.
it. And he said his teacher bragged on him because he writes really big anyway,
Uh-huh.
and she bragged on him and said that his cursive was the best in the class because it's big and you're supposed to write big in cursive. So it
Nice.
really sometimes it can be a self-esteem booster if they end up liking it. But as
Yeah.
Jennifer said, go by their, read your child and see. You can
Yeah.
even
Very
try it at home.
individual. Very
Yeah,
individual.
I
right.
want
But I was really worried about it before that.
Jules, as far as like what's working right in schools and good experiences and successes that we're seeing, what type of situation does your school? Are you guys inclusive? Is your child getting pull out or push in, or what type of services are they getting?
In my specific school,
Uh-huh.
yeah, my school's a public school, and it is an inclusive school. They've got inclusion classrooms. My son is only pulled out for his reading program. He's pulled out twice a day because he's severe. So he also gets OT for writing. He has mild dysgraphia too, but he gets pulled out for that twice a day, 5 days a week. And they do it during times that the other kids are going other places anyway. So I don't even know what all of the pullouts are, but some of them go, to a certain teacher, and I know the gifted and talented get pulled out at the same time. And in the classroom, they don't cover anything new during that time.
Okay.
So yeah, so he doesn't miss recess. He still goes to all specials. Specials are what they call art and music in our school. Um, so it's really actually been very positive, and the kids actually don't even know that he's going to get extra help because all the kids go different places at that time.
That's
So I found
great.
it to be, yeah, a pretty good situation. Again, it's not perfect. I still had to fight for Wilson reading and for the proper program, but overall it's been positive.
Hmm.
That's a good point that you just brought up too about your OT because this mom she can request that her son have an OT eval and that way that might kind of hammer some of those you know issues out and figure out exactly where the struggle is if there is one. And definitely the keyboarding, just to kind of emphasize that, that is so important. And there are so many really good keyboarding programs out there that he definitely needs to learn keyboarding anyway. I mean, it's just a skill that we all need to have.
Yeah, and there is a program, there's a lot. There's a BBC typing that's good for younger kids, and there's also Nessie.com. It's a
Hmm.
you have to pay them. I think it's $35, but it's got a program that teaches it's specifically for dyslexic kids how to type. And you, Jennifer and Mariah, you may know of some others too, but those are the two I know of.
Yeah, there are actually several, and there are some really good ones. And some of them actually work kind of around some games that involve some phonics type skills. So it's kind of neat. There's a lot of good ones. So definitely check that out.
What about offering Jamie Martins at atdyslexia.com? We love
Yes,
him.
Yeah,
yes.
Jamie Martin definitely has some really good information. He's got a website and a blog, and he's done webinars for us, and he has some other webinars that are out there.
Oh, and he's
So,
going to your SPOD conference, right?
Yes,
um,
I'm
yep,
pretty
he's
sure.
going to be at Spotlight. Yep, he sure is. And one of the things I think, I'm not positive of his topic, but Jamie always has really good assistive technology information. So go to his website, and then you can just go from there and find the blog. And he has like a noodle thing that he does. It's really good, really good.
And also, I was going to mention too, if you go to that explore1in5.org website, they we actually it's through Learning Ally. We actually do have kids on there who have done their own reviews of some assistive technology. It's not as much as Jamie has, like Jamie Martin, his website, he goes into all of it, but they have reviewed some of them, and you can actually watch the video of the kids themselves saying what they like and don't like about it. So it's
And
kind of cool.
off the top of your head, Brian, the assistive technology blogger, Kathy Stratton's son, I can't think of what
Oh
his
yeah, Brian Mersma.
Yes.
do you know his website
M
or his
E
blog is called.
yeah. Oh gee. His
We can
name is Mersma.
yeah.
Meersma. Brian.
Hmm. He does a
Maybe
really
we,
good job.
he does. Maybe we can put. You know what? I'll put that in the follow-up email.
Okay.
Jules, we got to put a big email together to go out
We
here.
do. We do. We'll put the typing programs and all of that in there too. We're getting a lot of different. Someone's asking about brain power, cognitive skills. I don't know
Well,
much about them, but
I can answer just a little bit about that. As far as uh, like certain types of training programs, we don't have a lot of good science behind a lot of those. So at this point, it's not something that I would specifically recommend or endorse. Um, the one thing that helps a lot of our kids is cognitive behavioral therapy, and that is an approach that helps them to develop a plan and a system. It helps them with organization. It helps them with certain ways that if they have recall issues, certain things that they can do to help them recall certain bits of information that they struggle with. I mean, so there are a lot of really helpful things out there, but as far as any kind of brain training type of programs, they don't show that there's a good crossover for the skills. So just to give kind of a really general example, say for instance, if you use the program like Luminosity, we all hear that on the radio or whatever. And when you first start out on Luminosity, you take a test and you get a 5. You're really not very good, but you play Luminosity, the games and stuff every single day, and eventually you are at like 50. So you've just improved 100% with this. And the thought behind it is that you can really get your brain exercised and get it going, and then you're gonna just have that ability to cross that over to other things. They do not show by science anyway that we have the ability to cross that over to other tasks. So while you become a better Luminosity player and it shows there, how are we going to transfer that into something that we can use every day? So
Good point.
that's kind of where science is with it. That doesn't mean that other things aren't going to develop and that more will come out of it that will be for it or against it. But right now, we just don't have good science behind it, and it's a lot of that stuff's really expensive. So.
Yeah.
Jennifer or Mariah, do either of you know the youngest age a child can be in the YES program? We just got that question.
I think it's 8 or 9 years old. That's for now. Keep in mind the Yes program it's very limited. It's only in a couple states right now. It's just
Colorado
starting.
and New Jersey.
Yeah.
Yes.
I believe 8 or 9 is the age of the kids that are the mentees, and then we have teenagers that are the ambassadors.
Right.
Um, but we do
Nationwide,
provide services nationwide
yeah. I was
virtually.
going to say
Yeah.
nationwide we do have some things. We have webinars like this, but they're actually ran by students. They're ran by the
Right.
YES students, and they're for everyone nationwide. So your student can get on those. We do them every other month. We have one coming up in September. And
Right.
then, and you can see that on we can put that in the follow-up email. We already have so much to put in there anyway. And,
Yeah. Exactly.
yeah, we also have services on Explore 105 and a newsletter. So we have several national things too, besides the
Yeah,
yes.
we're definitely still building all these programs out. So the more the participation that we get from our members, the more it's going to drive us, in the areas to serve. So virtually, we're really trying hard to build out the youth services. So that we're getting there.
And I think
Okay,
our time is coming to a close, but
we're over. So
okay.
yeah, I know
Well,
there's
thank
questions
you.
we did not answer. If I mean, there was just so much in here, and yet a lot of other parents pitched in and actually answered a lot of questions, so that was really good too. But let's continue these conversations in the Learning Ally parent chat. And if you want to discuss, I see that someone put on there, like, how do I get my child tested? These are definitely things that you should call the 800-635-1403 number, or log into your Learning Ally account and make an appointment with one of the parent support specialists, and they will help you to kind of get a plan in place and touch on resources that'll help guide you through the process. So definitely reach out and keep learning as much as you can, and keep an eye out for upcoming webinars, and don't forget about Spotlight on Dyslexia. And that's it for today, girls. Anything else you want to add before we sign off?
Just thank you.
Thank
All
you,
right.
everyone. Good job,
Thanks, you
Julie.
guys. Have a great day.
Thanks, guys.
Okay.
Bye-bye.